without asking, and that worked too. Thank you so much for coming. We're here to celebrate the life of Sean Fry. Many of you knew him. All of you knew him or knew someone that knew him or were touched by him in some way. And it's really great to see everyone out here and to see so much support for Sean. My mom wanted to start by saying a couple of things about Sean, and then I'll share some words, and then if anyone else has moved to speak, we'll have some discussion.
Thank you all for coming out, celebrating my baby with me. Sean was difficult to describe. Not sure exactly what adjective. There's not one. He was many things to many people at many different times in his life. But he was always my baby. I loved him very much, even during the hard times, and there were a lot of hard times. If you knew Sean, you knew that. He came into the world like a firecracker. The nurse midwife barely caught him. She was washing her hands, and the nurse was like, Kathy, yeah, I'm washing my hands. And he was sliding out. That's just how Sean was. He came when he wanted to come, and he did things the way he wanted to do them his whole life. And most of the time, to heck with the rest of us and what we thought was the right way to do things. And I admired that about him most of the time. Some of the time. Some of the time, not so much. He was, if you look at the pictures, you'll see he was a super happy young child. He just has a huge grin, and he was happy, and he was content with life, and all was good. And then his dad left, and a baby brother came. Sorry, Sam. Maybe usurped him a little bit in the baby world. And other traumas happened to Sean in his life by people that he should have been able to trust. And there's no doubt that it had an impact on him. But he struggled with anger and with sadness and just trying to figure out a world that didn't make sense to him. And there were times he got really mad at me because my mom and I basically raised him, and we taught him to accept and love everybody, and we taught him about fairness and equity and equality. And then when he got older and he realized that that's not what everybody believed in, it was hard for him. And he really struggled with the isms. He believed in justice and doing what was right for everybody, even though sometimes he didn't get it right. He knew the way the world was supposed to work, and it didn't always work that way, and that was hard for him. He was no doubt gifted and brilliant, and not a straight A student, and would much rather, and some of his teachers are here and can vouch for this, would much rather write a 15-page research project on England rather than do their homework. And he'd write poetry, and he'd write stories, and then he'd not do his homework. It was Sean doing what Sean did, which was his own way of doing things. But he cared about people more than anything else. even though that was hard for him sometimes to show people. Most of all, the people that were closest to him, it was hard for him to make sure that he told us and showed us that he loved us. And sometimes it was hard for us to help make sure he knew that we loved him. I hope he knew, and I think he did, but sometimes I wonder. But he loved big, and he loved in his own ways. He loved Mackin. He went there for kindergarten, and then he went back as an adult. While my mom was needed someone to stay with her and I needed to work, he stayed home with her and took care of her. And then when she passed, he got a job at Mackin. And those were some of his best years. Working with the kids brought purpose and meaning to his life. He didn't always do it perfectly, but he loved kids, and he would find the bullies, and he'd find the ones that were being bullied, and he'd make friends with both of them, and then help them make friends with each other. And he just had a way of seeing those kids that needed somebody, I think, because he was one of those kids that needed somebody, and he became that somebody for so many of them. The last few years have been hard for him. When he stopped working at Mackin, that was hard, very, very hard for him. But he was trying still. He was trying still to overcome some of the demons that he was wrestling with. And I'm really sad that he didn't get a chance to finish that work and live a nice, long, happy life. I don't know what else to say about my Sean, except that I love him and I will miss him always. Thank you again for being here.
Sean was my first brother. Somehow he both looked up to me and chafed under me. As soon as he was around, we were always in cahoots. Always worried the floor was lava, or that we needed an elaborate plan to rinse off all of the Easter candy before my mom woke up. We would talk late into the night. We loved playing this game called the movie game, where we would just name movies over and over. It gets very boring very quickly, and there's not that many new movies, but we would play it all the time. And you would always want to get like Terminator 1, Terminator 2. All the series were very effective strategies. We would sneak out behind the couch to watch Seinfeld. I still don't know if my mom knew that we were back there, if she was like very quiet or just didn't want to deal with it. Sometimes I gave my brother a hard time, and he always gave it right back. Sean is still the one person that could make me angry, and the only person that I've gotten into a physical fight with as an adult. He would call me out when I needed it. When I came out, he told me at first that I shouldn't share that, and then he ended up becoming a great supporter of gay rights and told me years later how he felt bad about what he said first and always supported me. He would text me and write to me out of the blue and ask me what I thought about some government policy or how something worked, or just some interesting fact in a book that he'd read. I loved my brother so much. When he was easy to love and when he was hard to love. I would do anything for Sean, and I will miss him for the rest of my life. I wanted to read In Blackwater Woods by Mary Oliver. Look, the trees are turning their own bodies into pillars of light, are giving off the rich fragrance of cinnamon and fulfillment. The long tapers of cattails are bursting and floating away over the blue shoulders of the ponds, and every pond, no matter what its name is nameless now. Every year, everything I have ever learned in my lifetime leads back to this. The fires and the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation. whose meaning none of us will ever know. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. Anyone wanted to come up and share any memories they had of Sean or say anything, you're welcome to.
My name is Nikki Serafin.
You gotta talk louder.
My name is Nikki Serafin, and I had the honor of meeting Sean 28 years ago when he walked through my classroom door as a brand new third grader. I was the teacher there. His second grade teacher had come in before the school year started when they were getting ready to tell me that I was getting a very special kid. I was probably not going to surprise any of you, but she said, Nikki, you have to know this. He's going to want to do things his own way. But that's okay, because the way that he does things is perfect for him. And I thought, okay, well, we'll see how this goes. I was a new teacher at the time. I didn't say young teacher, I started teaching a little late on, okay? But I immediately realized that she was, pretty soon, realized that she was right. So, Sean was in my room for language arts, and we had a lot of choice and a pretty decent amount of freedom. There were kind of like centers, and kids would go from area to area, but they had to hit each area and do each task, their own way, more or less. But Sean asked me very politely. He asked me if he could do it differently, and he told me that what he wanted to do was spend more time just reading, and then also he would like to write reports and present them to the class. This from a third grader. And when I first got him at the beginning of third grade, his readings were, typical third grade boy readings. He got hooked on The Magic Tree House, and the first one that he read was Dinosaurs in the Dark. And he came up and he said, "Are there more of these? Because I need more of these." The funny thing about him wanting to do things his own way, I didn't have the second volume, but I had the third one available, and I said, "I have the third one here." And he said, no. And you have to realize they're not sequential, they're just on different imaginary situations. They said, "No, I'm not going to read the third one. You will be needing to get me the second one first." So I did, and I honestly don't remember how many there were, but he read all of them. And then he pretty much blossomed, and he went on to read much more complicated things. So the other thing he wanted to do during language arts was to use the computer. I think we only had like 1 or 2 computers in the classrooms back then. It's not like we had a bank of them. So he wanted to know if each day during language arts, if he would do some research on whatever we were studying in science and wrote up a report, could he share that information with the class? And he did. And sometimes it was right on topic, but sometimes it was something like, okay, here's what you guys need to know about elephants. And we were studying ocean animals at the time. So, what an adult elephant can make, I don't have it memorized, sorry, but something like 42 pounds of feces every 12 minutes. Needless to say, the kids really enjoyed having Sean as part of our community. So when I think about Sean, the first thing that I think about is he did things his way. And I already knew what I was going to say before I heard what you all said, so it just we all kind of have the same picture here. So the next thing about Sean is, and it goes along with what I just said though, is just an intense passion. If he was into something, he was into something. And if he felt something, he felt it strongly. So I liked to decorate the classroom with lots of posters that had to do with whatever we were studying in social studies or science. And he would come through on a Monday morning and say, "Did you put up any new posters? You know that I like the ocean. Oh, I'm going to go check that one out. That one's new." So he really wanted to know everything that we had, and then sometimes he would use that to kind of fuel whatever he was investigating. Otherwise, he just kind of needed an inventory of what we had and wanted to be able to know everything about it. Then the next thing that is already recurrent theme when I hear people talking about Sean, is he understood what was fair and what was not fair. And if he felt something wasn't fair towards him, he would let me know, but he would do it in kind of a charming way, actually, and usually he was right. And we kind of had this, we had this thing in our classroom where a community circle once a week on Fridays where people could express their concerns or their support or whatever they wanted to say, within bounds and with respect to other students. And Sean would be somebody who would say, I probably should talk to you about this in private, but I have tried. And I noticed that you treated this little guy, he didn't call him this little guy, I'm calling him this little guy, this person in this way. And it's not like there was any huge bullying or it wasn't anything that was in your face, but it was enough that he knew it was wrong. And he would just directly address it with the person. I remember the first time he said it, he said, he was truly incredulous. He just said, why would you do that to somebody? He just couldn't grasp that anybody would do something like that. Whatever it was. It was a small thing. Maybe they took his soccer ball when it wasn't their turn. He just couldn't understand. Well, that's a big deal when you're a third grade boy. Yeah. He just couldn't understand that anybody would do something, and especially anybody would ridicule or put down anybody. And then, Dorothy, I heard you mention anger. I didn't see that in the 3rd or 4th grade. But maybe I saw the beginning of a hint of it in the very best of ways, because if somebody was really messing with somebody else in a way that was disrespectful or put them down, Sean could just kind of walk over and kind of raise an eyebrow and just look deep into their eyes. And that was it. It wasn't going to happen again. People looked up to him. I mean, he was only this tall, but they still looked up to him. They respected him. He was loved. And then now let's move on now to love. Okay, so first of all, Dorothy, I remember we had a couple of conferences. He was so excited when Dorothy was going to come in for a conference. He would say, my mom's coming. It's going to be at 10:15. Are you ready? And I don't know if you remember either, Dorothy, but he insisted in sitting, which was fine, but it wasn't typical back in those days. He insisted in sitting in on the conferences with us, and he was very animated.
I think he was worried about what you might say.
I truly only had good things to say about him, but he might have been a little bit worried. I don't know. I think he was proud, actually. He was really proud and wanted to share. And I just remember, Dorothy, also, and I don't remember the details, but you and I discussing something about something that you were doing in your job. And you were so empathetic and so kind, and I thought, here is this woman with all these children, and she still is focusing intensely on other children who need things. And I thought, that's why Sean is the way he is. That's where the empathy comes from and the kindness comes from. I would say he was his mother's son. That's the way I take it. And another thing that was funny about Sean was, so I taught multi-age. I kept students for 2 years, 3rd and 4th grade. And when Sean was going to leave, then Sam was going to be in my class. And where are you, Sam? Right in front of me. Okay, Sam, hi. So Sean came in beforehand. He goes, I'm pretty sure, no one has promised it yet, but I think my mom, I think that's going to work out. I think that my little brother Sam is going to be in your class. And he said, you're really going to like him, Mrs. Seraphim. He's really funny. He's really nice, but he's a little more quiet than I am. So I know. So he goes, so you might have to give him a little bit of time to see the real Sam, but you're going to love him. And then he goes, but not more than me. The funny thing is, Sam, I don't really remember you being a particularly quiet child at all.
Comparatively.
Maybe you were at home. Okay, maybe you were at home. But that's just kind of the way I am always going to remember Sean, is this human being with empathy, kindness, a sense of justice, and love. And so I think that he is a part of everybody here, and he always will be.
Thanks so much. Did anyone else want to come up and say anything?
Close up.
You have to hold it real close.
I'm Sean's aunt by marriage.
And we've always been close with Dorothy. We've all known each other since she was 5 years old. And the one thing about Sean that I do remember mostly is that, okay, we always traveled around in a big pack. When we lived in Arizona, it was our 4 kids and her 6 kids, and we just mobbed places at church. And so we always had a habit of keeping care of one of the children. We tried to rotate them all in a couple weeks every summer. She'd take one of ours, so summer was filled with these exchanges of kids. And the one thing about, we had a little different styles. Dennis and I were in the military. Our house was a little more orderly.
You had 2 less than I did.
And I had 2 less. I don't mean orderly like clean or neat. That doesn't happen with a big family. I just mean we were a little bit more regimented, maybe. And he sort of chafed at that. Probably those of you know he chafed at that. But he always wanted to come up and ask you the hard questions sometimes. And this continued into adulthood. He would text me. I'm not sure anybody else really knew, but he would text me and we'd have these text exchanges. I'd call him when he was having some, help me. I'm not feeling too great today, and so I'd give him a call. And I remember we were fixing up the house when we moved into the new house, and he had one of his stomach episodes. And I mean, I did not know this was a regular occurrence. I was ready to call the ambulance and everything, but he just showed so much positivity after that, and it's really a unique thing to me that I'm going to miss, the conversations about Star Trek, about Lord of the Rings, we were big fans, about the things that he was in favor of. I mean, we never got into anything too terribly deep, but it was just really nice to know that sometimes he would contact me just to reach out and have another connection.
Don't forget about Halloween. Decorating for Halloween. Decorating for Halloween.
He and I love Halloween, and when in town, when I have the chance, we went whole hog and got their house decorated. I know he's done that with me when he was little too, so I don't know if that was the spark or if they got that from somewhere else, but he was always invested in some traditions and celebrations.
Everyone, my name is Billy Main.
I'm Casey Aiken, and we both worked with Sean for quite a few years.
When I got to work with Sean at Mackin, I always thought of the core teaching staff who was always there for many years in a row as the pillars of Mackin. And Sean was one of those pillars, working as a recess aide. He took that position to new heights. He really put his heart into it. And the only recess aide I've ever seen who would set up a reading station for students and did so with such intention and crafting the books that he wanted the kids to read. He would write grants, bring in resources for students, and just did everything he could. I love talking to Sean outside of our profession, having meaningful conversations about the world, culture, what's going on in school at that time. It was just incredible talking with him. He was such a giver as well, and when I heard about Sean's passing, I went and looked for many of the trinkets he had given to me, and so many of those trinkets had so much thought and attention behind them. I have a polar bear USB drive with a Coca-Cola badge on it that has the entire discography of Wu-Tang Clan. That's a lot of songs, and I still have that. Sean, I taught social studies. Yeah, I taught social studies, and I had a lot of maps on my wall. And Sean recognized that, and he said, "Hey, I want to give you a map." And he gave me the current Phoenix Transit map, and I put that up on my wall. And he gave me that transit map every single year so we could have an updated version for the students. So the poster reference still holds true. And I remember walking into my classroom one day and seeing, wrapped in a gallon Ziploc bag, the final edition of the transit book. And I still have that to this day. It's a relic, it's on the bookshelf, and I appreciate that from Sean. So such an incredible person, an incredible mother, and I'm glad I got to work with him at Mackin, and it's just really sad to hear. I think he'll live on in all those little trinkets, so many different things that he gave on to students, and I know they still have them to this day because they held on to him so tight. And I'll remember him for his unique hats. I love the hats that he wore, and just a phenomenal person.
And I can't remember a lot of conversation specific, but like similar themes about just like what was happening in society and the times, current affairs and music. And, but like there are like distinct things that like really pop out, and, you know, like, especially like the kids loved him on campus, and, you know, they'd run up Coach Fry and arms around the legs or the hip or whatever it was, right, depending on the age of the kid, but they really did love him. And one of the things that like stands out from his efforts there was like he was very deliberate about making sure that kids were not just kind of like sitting against the wall doing nothing, like really getting kids engaged in like group activities with others. And, you know, it just showed how much he cared about every individual there. And I do remember when he like started like having some trouble with his stomach, and it was a challenge, and he was trying different things and trying to figure it out. And I remember him kind of really struggling through that time, but he was still showing up and wanting to be there for the kids. And I remember the hats, the straw hats out there were a must, but you know, and then when the beard got fuller and fuller, and but talking about a lot of books, a lot of like historical, a lot of depth. But, you know, and the biggest thing was he was just really passionate and caring about protecting people. And I do remember him really participating a lot when we had like the Red for Ed campaign for education. He was always there. And today I went to Mackin for a meeting, and I hadn't been there in many years. And when I passed that corner of Virginia and 22nd, it was like I could just see him standing there because he spent so much time at that. It was a crossing duty that he served there. So I am grateful for the time, and I know everyone that has known him was impacted in a positive way. Sadly, don't have many more memories, but value the ones that I do.
One last thing would be the nickname the students gave him, Mr. French Fry.
Anyone else want to come up and share anything about Sean?
Maria, and I worked with Sean very briefly at Mackin, so I'm still at Mackin. My first memory of Sean, when I started working there, and it's a reference to Mr. Maine. Who is Mr. French Fry? I knew Sean, but didn't know who Mr. French Fry was. So the kids would come up to the office and say, Mr. French Fry needs manuals, Mr. French Fry needs this, Mr. French Fry needs some support, Mr. French Fry this. And I was clueless, but I just complied. Kids are kids, right? So at midpoint, halfway, almost to the school year, my brain put 2 and 2 together. Yes. And I'm like, oh, bingo. Yeah, and honestly, I thought it was a joke when I saw the map that listed all the teachers, and there he was, his name, Sean Fry. And I'm like, somebody made a joke or something, maybe. But nope, it was Fry. And during the summer, because I started working there, he ran like a after-school kind of summer daycare for all the kids in the neighborhood. Any age was welcome. This was a program that Ms. Frost, our former principal, was in charge of, and made sure that any kid, high school, didn't have a place to go, he would be there to support them. He would go into the closets and get these little carts. And I think they were purposely meant for carrying heavy objects, but he would get them and the kids would scoot down the NPR like a slide on those. And there, I think at some point he did post some videos of those with the kids sliding down the thing and being mischievous. And then we had COVID, and it was kind of sad because we didn't see any kids, but he was there supporting the kids nonetheless. And I walk out around the empty campus and I see Sean was here in shock. And I'm like, did we have a break-in? So I go in and let my AP know, hey, there's all these writing everywhere. And it says Sean was here. He goes, yeah, it's a prank. The kids were bored, so they started just going around in random places and writing Sean was here. And the other thing that was very so curiosity is like, we have a shed that's right across the cafeteria. And I didn't even know for many years it was reference to Sean's shed. Because Sean had so many playground equipment, and that's the other thing from Mr. Maine, that he always made sure every year that the kids had sports equipment, whether it was basketballs, softball, footballs, whatever, jump ropes, hula hoops. We always made sure, and he always made sure that the kids had things to do while at recess. There was something else that I thought about of him. Yes, but the other thing when in his downtime, you will never see Sean just sitting there. He always had a book. So if you ever engaged with Sean, you would always find something interesting that he would talk about. And when he finished researching one subject, he would move to another. So he was never bored in anything. So if you ask him about something current in the news in the world, he would know. He would be the best person to know. I was kind of surprised that he didn't wind up being a teacher, because he was so knowledgeable. Even when he wasn't working with the kids, you could always ask him and engage him in a conversation. So those are my fond memories that I had, even though I worked with Sean for a very short period of time, of how he was with the kids, how I was with the community. He was always very good.
So let me tell you the bad stuff about Sean.
Be nice, be nice.
So, the guy he's standing up here, his nickname at our house was Curly Fry. All my friends all across the United States, they would say, how's Curly Fry? They still ask about you. He was in Weebles with my son Jose.
We can't hear you.
Hold it close.
How's that? Is that better?
Yeah.
That's better.
So the first time that I met Sean was when you were a Weeblo with Jose, and we were in not this part, but the one on 16th Street, Glen Rosa, and they all showed up. Dorothy shows up and everything else, and all of a sudden I see this horde of children. You were there too, Sam. And rather than come and say hi to me, they attacked me. I mean, they just jumped on me, knocked me out to the ground. I won't tell you where they hit me, but I never had any children after that. And that was Sean. I mean, they became part of our family. They still are part of our family. My food bill went up like 40% because they were at our house all the time. And Scott was a big eater. Sean was not that big of an eater, but you had to have Coke. One word that you describe Sean is Diet Coke, not Coke, just regular Coke. He knew the history of Coke. He knew how many they were made, where they were made, and how many he could eat. He could always have a Coke with him. But intellectually, he was really great. With Scott, he had all the answers to everything. But he was not that much fun because Sean had all the questions. You raised the subject. Sean had a question about it, and you knew the answer, but he wasn't going to tell you what it was. You had to guess it for yourself. You could be sitting out there, and for whatever reason, Sean would know what was going on. I was a U.S. attorney for Arizona, and when I retired, when I left, Sean insisted that he come out and give a speech for me. So there was this whole crowd of all these law enforcement people, Sean and law enforcement. And Sean went up there. He was the last person to speak, and he says, "Let me tell you everything about Mr. Rivera." That's the only time he's ever called me Mr. Rivera. And he knew everything about me, how old I was, why I couldn't have kids, how much he liked Coca-Cola, and how much he loved everybody. I mean, with Sean, you got love. You just got unbashful, undying love. and nothing hidden about him. And it was nice to talk to him because no matter what subject you talked about, I mean, we talked Mexican Civil War at one time. He knew more about it than I did, and I was born down there. And I was a history teacher too, and he still knew more than I did. He was amazing. I mean, it was always great to see him. And I can keep going on. I won't, but I'll leave you one last remark. Sean's hats. He gave me his blue Chinese communist hat that I still have, and you're never going to get back. It's still in our guys. He gave it to me. He says, "You could," but he asked it to me. He said, "You'd be a better communist than law enforcement." Just a good guy. Good guy.
I don't have too much to add. Sean's my little cousin. I love him dearly. It's sad that he's gone, obviously, and everybody's brought up all the great things about him, but there was one thing that I kind of was sitting here listening, and I just wanted to reiterate how goofy he could be and how spontaneous and playful he could be, especially on this side of the table when he was a kid. There's a story I've told 100 times, and I'll just share it for those who haven't heard it. But when I was a kid, he was 6 years younger than me, I think. There was a girl that my sister was friends with, and I had a crush on her. And they were doing a sleepover. And for no other reason than he thought it would elicit laughter, he went and hid inside of her sleeping bag, removed his clothing entirely, and when they went to bed, he burst out. Everybody screams, and he bolts down the hallway, laughing his head off. And that's one of my favorite memories of Sean. And I just wanted everybody to get a chance to remember, the bright, light funness that he brought to the world as well. So that's all.
How come I didn't know about that?
I know, right? I didn't know about that.
That's a really great story. I did not know that story.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for remembering Sean. My mom reminded me I needed to do things. Please take a photo collage. We have them up at the front, but it just has pictures of Sean from throughout his life. Please sign the guest book if you move to. Is there anything else? Eat food. Oh,
We're gonna do a
drink
Coke toast
for Sean. We're gonna try to do a Coke toast with everyone grabbing a Coke and having some. But if you have a Coke, think of Sean, and thank you so much for coming.